Mark Henley from Uniting Communities, a large community service organisation based in South Australia, and we've been funded over a number of years by ECA to work on consumer engagement stuff. I also want to begin by recognising that we meet on the land of traditional owners and recognise elders, past, present and future. The topic of this, and I'm going to the brochure here, is this session: how do we use data in network decision making and engage consumers as part of this process? So that's the session we're in. Three key words there for me, or three key concepts: data, network decision making and engaging consumers. Well, Mariu's just sort of done a really nice job of talking about the recent experience in consumer engagement. And here's just a handful of some of the great processes that have happened over the last 2 or 3 years. And I do want to put on the public record, as I've done elsewhere, that the development of consumer engagement by network businesses in Australia has been quite spectacular over the last couple of years. And I recognise Table 23, Table 6, as some of the people that have been involved heavily in driving this work. Mariu's talked about some of the stuff here, so I won't go into this much further, other than to recognise great consumer engagement has been happening and is happening, and it will just keep on getting better. So now I want to talk about data. And before I talk about data, I want to talk about the interpretation of data. And I want to start off by talking about language, because the language we use and we share to describe data, to understand data, is critically important. I just want to give you one example of language. In this space, we talk a fair bit about going off grid, the DER world, going off grid. What does going off grid mean? Well, we all know what that means. Here we've got a couple of examples. Over here, the happy consumer with the panels, no doubt the batteries, and minimal need to engage, to plug into the grid. But I also want to take you to Hope's Cafe, a service that our organisation runs in the eastern suburbs of Adelaide, in quite a stately old church. And in that, in Hope's Cafe, a whole lot of people, refugees, people from all manner of communities who are doing it tough. And so if you come into that cafe and you start talking to the people, talk to them about what going off grid means to them. What it means is they're saying, I simply cannot afford to rent a house, to pay my electricity bills, to pay my water bills, and to eat. So what they do, and we're seeing this in growing numbers, is people are leaving that whole system, getting the car and moving around. And they are remarkably good at surviving by living in a car. They can tell you where you can go to get a shower. Universities are quite good, but there are others too, some gyms actually. But anyway, they can tell you the butchers that will sort of give them a little bit of meat, the public barbecues where you can go and cook a barbecue up. This is the group that increasingly we're seeing as going off-grid. Question, of course, is that what we want? We are now seeing vulnerable non-consumers. So we're needing to make sure that our data is able to find ways of capturing that experience, as well as the experience that we are far more familiar with in this room. I want to just talk a bit about the data too, because interpretation of data is critical. And I just want to give you one slide, one graph. So this is a bit of data, and you can see proportion of households with solar panels by tenure type. And it's 2012, the blue lines, and it's, trying not to get you here, Joe, and it's 2015-16, the green lines. And here we see owner without a mortgage, owner with a mortgage, renter, other tenure type, all households. I reckon we could show this data to 10 different people and get 10 different interpretations as to what it means. And all right, because you can look at different parts of the story. So, solar panels, whoops. Here's the button. Improving, increasing, going up. That's a good thing. Solar panels are going up for households. We can say, oh, owners without a mortgage, older people, most likely, they're doing quite well. They're going up there. But then we can say, hang on, renters. A, they're going backwards, but B, the level of PV for renters is dramatically lower. dramatically lower than for all households or for other tenures. Now, if I'm a politician, I'm going to look at this and say, what does this tell me about my electorate? If I'm a journalist with a well-known national daily, I might say, prices are going up for electricity, PV panels are going up for electricity, therefore PV is driving up energy prices. Which brings me to my next point. One of the observations I make of the last couple of days is we've been talking about data as though everybody who looks at data, uses data, reads data is rational. And one of the issues that we confront within reality, particularly for the people that impact or that make the policy, that make the commentary on the data that customers see, are not always going to give rational analysis. The politicians, the journalists. So we're needing to be really careful in our communication about what the data is and what it's telling us. I might come back to that point a bit later on. So I want to move on to, well, what do consumers want from data? And I want to talk very quickly about some really interesting stuff that I think is being done in the UK by Sustainability First. And they've done a project which they talk about a sustainable licence to operate. And they've come up with, in brief, 4 pillars for consumer benefit. These 4 pillars are well worth applying, I think, to consumers and data. I'll leave them for you to read. I want to conclude by just a quick summary about what do consumers want from data. Muriel has given you a similar list. Facts with meaning. Clear, unambiguous language. They want value. You know, there's data. Look, I've been here for 2 days and no one's yet said lies, damn lies and data. So let me be the first to say it. We've got to make sure that the data is useful, is relevant and that adds value. And we're needing data to be consistent with the narrative that businesses and that others are telling us. But I want to conclude with 2 words about what consumers want from data. And I'm going to, first of all, give you a phrase that I'm stealing unambiguously from the ability sector customers, where the consumers from the ability sector talk fervently about not about us, without us. Not about us, without us. And that's the message that I really want to leave behind. It is about with. It is consumers with network businesses, consumers with researchers, understanding the data, making sense of the data, understanding the shared narrative. And of course, what do we want from data? Action. Thank you.